a 2 mm tear in a rubber glove at a depth of 2,000 meters is a death sentence. In the lead-lined underground laboratory in Romania, air pressure doesn't push against your body. It is looking for a way to permeate through the layers of tissue. Right now, a few hundred geological strata beneath the soles of your feet, there are creatures that have not seen a single photon of light for 5 million years. They are swimming in reservoirs of concentrated acid, breathing sulfur, and establishing a complete biological system. If tomorrow, a cosmic catastrophe causes the sun to extinguish permanently, all life on the surface of the Earth will freeze and become extinct within a few weeks. But this world of darkness will not. It will continue to develop without ever knowing that the human world has disappeared. We are still proud of telescopes that see through galaxies millions of light years away. But the reality is, humanity is standing on an architectural infrastructure of which we are completely ignorant. The rocky crust, where we build cities, cultivate, and live through thousands of generations, is actually just a fragile skin, a temporary privilege. Turn off all artificial light sources. This is a journey through the fractured layers of knowledge. In the French Alps, next to a path full of green grass, there is a narrow rock crevice just wide enough for one person to squeeze through. No one would think that this crevice leads straight into an underground hall with the height of a 30-story building. Gouffre Burger. Milky white stalactite columns, millions of years old, stand tall in the silent space like an ancient cathedral. But tragedy always begins with a light cloud in the surface sky. When a rain shower pours down on the peaks of the Alps, explorers in the cave deep down at 800 meters will hear a strange sound. It is not the sound of flowing water. It is a low, muffled roar, like a train rushing straight into a cliff. In exactly 30 minutes, the entire silent hall turns into a high-pressure hydraulic meat grinder. Rainwater on the surface does not seep gradually through the soil as we imagine. Geologists releasing organic dye into the streams above discovered a truth. The limestone structure inside the mountain acts like a perfect network of water collecting funnels. The phenomenon of karstification creates massive water reservoirs in the high strata. When the rainfall reaches a mechanical limit, hydrostatic pressure triggers a communicating vessel's effect, causing all of these water pockets to burst at the same moment. The water is accelerated up to 5 times, pouring straight down into the underground vertical shafts. Explorers suspended on ropes have no way out. The muddy floodwaters swallow the flashlight beams, sealing off the only underground niches. In 1950, the first expedition teams had to stand on a narrow ledge, less than half a meter wide, listening to the water rising to their heels for 20 hours in the dark. They realized one thing: the ground is not a safe, solid block of rock. It is a giant sponge, an automatic hydraulic system ready to store and discharge millions of cubic meters of water without warning. Underground water does not only flow downward. Sometimes it reverses every basic mechanical law that humans are taught. At a narrow rock alcove in the Maelstrom Siphon Cave in Canada, technical divers witness a phenomenon: all the air bubbles from their diving tanks do not rise to the cave ceiling. They are sucked backward, disappearing into a dark crevice. This cave acts like an underground two-way piston. Its suction and discharge cycle coincides with the pressure from the glacier lakes above. When the compressed air pocket inside the empty chambers collapses under water pressure, it creates a zone of maximum negative pressure vortex, pulling all liquids and objects back toward the center of the Earth. Science cannot send equipment deeper because every signal wire is snapped by this suction force. But when the water current finds a state of balance, the liquid begins to paint pictures that deceive human sight. At a depth of 30 meters at Seno de Angelita, Mexico, divers are stunned to see an actual river flowing beneath the water, complete with banks and withered dry tree branches sticking up. What is the nature of this underground river? As the divers descend through that ash-gray mist, their visibility instantly drops to zero. A strong smell of sulfur hits them, and the metal equipment on their bodies begins to oxidize, turning a dull black. This is the hydrogen halocline boundary. Fresh water, from rain being lighter, lies in the upper layer. Salt water from the sea, being heavier, sinks to the lower layer. At the intersection, all the leaves and animal carcasses falling from the mouth of the sinkhole undergo anaerobic decomposition, producing hydrogen sulfide gas. This gas layer has a unique density, is insoluble, and hovers in the middle, forming an eternal ribbon of toxin. The ancient Maya saw this phenomenon and believed they had reached Xibalba, the 9 levels of hell. They were not wrong. The poetry of this misty river is actually a band of toxins that can strip away the life of any creature without protective equipment. The Earth does not need to use stone walls to separate humans. It uses the chemistry of fluids themselves to create inviolable borders. If the combination of toxin and aesthetics in Mexico is not enough to prove the hostility of the underground, look at the Neka Cave, located deep beneath a damp mineral mine. Here, giant silver-white selenite crystal blocks, with a diameter equal to a person's embrace, over 11 meters long, crisscross like the swords of a race without humans. Humans entering here look small and clumsy in thick orange hazmat suits, breathing through long cooling air tubes. Why does one of the most splendid spaces on the planet require the equipment of an astronaut? The temperature inside Neka stays at 50 degrees Celsius with an absolute humidity of 90%. But this is an ideal thermal trap. When a person enters without cooling equipment, their body temperature, which is at 37 degrees Celsius, is lower than the environmental temperature. As a result, each inhaled breath causes the water vapor in the air to condense directly inside the pulmonary alveoli. You will drown in the very air of the cave, right in the middle of a glowing block of diamond. These selenite blocks did not grow from eternal silence. They are nourished by a magma chamber located 5 kilometers beneath, boiling the groundwater and saturating sulfate ions for 500,000 years. When mine workers accidentally drilled into Neka in 2000, they entered with naked curiosity and immediately collapsed after 5 minutes due to heat shock and hallucinations. Nature proves a ruthless law. The pinnacle of geological perfection can only be created in an environment that completely rejects human life. Beneath the rock layer, hostility does not only come from temperature or pressure. It comes from invisible entities that evolved millions of years before us. In the darkness of Kitume Cave in Kenya, infrared cameras record a strange behavior. Herds of giant wild elephants follow each other deep into the earth at night. Their shapes, their tusks strike the rock walls, scraping off patches of white powder to lick. The ancient volcanic activity of Mount Elgon created rock layers containing high concentrations of sodium sulfate salt, something that surface herbivores always crave. But in that cramped space, every milliliter of air is saturated by bat guano particles containing Marburg virus, one of the most horrific hemorrhagic fever virus strains, dissolving human internal tissues with a mortality rate of 88%. When U.S. military scientists wore level 4 biohazard suits into here, they discovered that the Marburg virus coexists peacefully with the Rosetus bat species without causing any symptoms. Caves are a primitive biological reservoir where humanity's most dangerous virus strains are perfectly stored across geological eras. But half a world away, at Lechuguilla Cave, USA, the microbial world chose a different way of defense, turning the entire modern medical field upside down. Lechuguilla is covered with snow-like whiskers made of pure gypsum without a single speck of dust. This place has been isolated from the surface world, with no contact with humans or animals for more than 4 million years. However, when microbiologists cultured bacterial strains taken from the deepest layers of the cave, they realized with shock they have the ability to completely neutralize 14 of the most powerful antibiotics today, including daptomycin, the last resort weapon of 21st century medicine. Antibiotic resistance is not a modern consequence of human medical abuse. Lechuguilla was formed from the bottom up by sulfuric acid rising from oil and gas fields. In this extreme inorganic environment, Bacteria are forced to eat rock to survive. To fight for each scarce mineral molecule, they evolve natural toxins to destroy each other. Resistance is exactly their armor in a million-year civil war deep underground. Humanity thinks it is leading the biotechnology race. But in reality, we are only accidentally reactivating supervirus warfare scenarios that the Earth has successfully rehearsed since before human ancestors appeared. The deeper one goes, the more human biological boundaries are broken. And sometimes, the biggest enemy is not a virus or a rock collapse, but the betrayal of our own brain. At Plura Cave in Norway, the bodies of two Finnish divers have lain at a depth of 110 meters under a narrow rock ledge since 2014. The Norwegian government declared recovery impossible due to water temperatures near freezing and a space too treacherous. Their bodies are permanently frozen, becoming part of the geological structure. In a cold water environment, the body consumes 3 times more oxygen than normal to maintain core temperature. When a diver gets a strap caught in a rock crevice, panic increases the breathing rate, leading to carbon dioxide poisoning and loss of logical thinking capability in just a few seconds. But at Boesmansgat sinkhole in South Africa, pressure performs an even more subtle act. It convinces humans to commit suicide. Seen from the surface, Boesmansgat is just a small, calm water hole in the middle of the desert. But beneath the water surface is a vertical abyss that swallows all light. At a depth of 270 meters, the water pressure is equivalent to having 28 cars pressing down on every square inch of the body. At this limit, nitrogen and helium gases in the diving tank are compressed to the point of altering the permeability of nerve cell membranes, causing high-pressure nervous syndrome. The diver's nervous system stops sending logical electrical signals. The brain begins to produce hallucinations of absolute happiness. Divers feel they are safe, they smile, and have a tendency to remove their breathing masks themselves to dissolve into the darkness. The documentary footage on Dave Shaw's helmet in 2005 recorded this entire process as he attempted to recover the body of another diver who had died 10 years prior. His fingers trembled. He became tangled in the nylon line, but the pressure-poisoned brain could no longer recognize the danger. He suffocated in a false peace. The abyss does not need to use claws to kill you. It uses your body's own chemistry to break the survival instinct. Imagine you are hanging on a 10-millimeter rope, suspended in a pitch-black bottomless abyss at Breathtaking Cave in Georgia, the deepest point on the planet ever explored. If a leg fracture accident happens here, at a depth of more than 2 kilometers inside the Earth, you have received a death sentence. Moving 1 meter upward takes up to 4 hours for a professional rescue team. To bring a stretcher through hundreds of narrow vertical crevices, humanity needs at least 5 consecutive days. No modern technology can intervene fast enough. Breathtaking is not a cave. It is a giant tree root plunging deep into the Earth's crust, formed by tectonic plate activity, pushing the Caucasus Mountains up while acidic water erodes the fault walls. In 2021, when a sudden underground flood hit, an exploration team had to make the decision to leave the body of their teammate, Pavel Demidov, in a rock crevice to flee upward. The underground is indifferent to camaraderie and all human values of the surface. But right at that harsh, absolute end, when explorers reach the underground lake blocking the path, their flashlights sweep across a site, shrimp and insect species that are completely transparent, without eyes, gliding peacefully. They have no concept of day or night, do not know of the existence of the sun, and have no need to know of the human world above. They live in an absolutely solitary ecosystem, completely detached from the geological time of the surface. The deeper we go into the Earth, the more humans realize the Earth does not need us to sustain life. The end point of knowledge lies at Muvil Cave, Romania. A limestone wall is smashed, releasing a pale yellow gas stream containing concentrations of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide 100 times higher than the surface. This is a perfect toxic gas chamber that can cause human cellular respiratory failure in seconds, similar to the mechanism of cyanide. But inside this lightly steaming underground lake, a galaxy glittering with green light appears. It is millions of bioluminescent microorganisms covering thick bacterial mats. Above them, more than 48 endemic species, centipedes, spiders, scorpions with translucent bodies like ghosts are crawling in swarms. Movile has been completely sealed off from the Earth's atmosphere for the past 5 million years. Not a single ray of light, not a single drop of rain. All life on the surface works based on photosynthesis, converting sunlight into energy. But at Movile, this ecosystem operates based on chemosynthesis. Autotrophic bacteria absorb toxic sulfur gas from the earth, oxidizing it to create organic matter, feeding the entire higher food chain. This is a complete biological blueprint, totally independent of the rest of the universe. We still spend billions of dollars on spacecraft to search for traces of life on the frozen moons of Jupiter or Saturn. But an alien planet, an exotic biological system that breaks all textbook theories, is actually existing right beneath the soles of your shoes. 10 coordinates, 10 tiers in humanity's pride. When we strip away light, stable pressure, and oxygen, the only 3 pillars supporting our civilization, we realize that what collapses first is not the physical body of humans, but the illusion that we have mastered this planet. The sunny surface you are living on is actually just a fragile layer of foam. Beneath, the grand and eternal infrastructure of the Earth is still operating according to its own laws, indifferent and resilient. The ultimate wonder of creation does not lie in distant nebulae 10,000 light-years away. It has always been there, in the dark, eternal, and vibrating right beneath your feet.